listening to the Scoop Slam Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Scoop Slam Podcast. We are back once again with the mid-year awards. Now, I know we're 3/4 of the way through the year, but SummerSlam just happened, so it kind of feels like the midway point of the wrestling year. So we got our mid-year awards. We've got some obvious tosses, and then we've got some real curveballs for you. But we don't have our tuxedos on. It's not the formal Scoopies, but these are more middies. Just maybe some predictions, not spoilers, for what will be later the Scoopies of the year. But before we get too far into anything, we're going to have our worst wrestler, our best wrestler, all the good stuff. On the other end of the line, as always, the historian of the Scoop Slam Podcast. He's got a repeat winner of lots of awards, as I think we both do. It's Ryan.
Yo, Micah, always good to be here with you, ready to get these middies started. And we're going to keep it tight today. We're keeping it tight. I know we promise that every week, but we are keeping it tight today.
Yeah.
The middies.
I think last week we actually followed through that promise. It was about an hour 10.
Yeah, we hit our time.
Yeah. So, we're working on it, and we did just come back, so we're trying to ease into everything. But I don't know. SummerSlam always feels like the midway point in the year for me. It'll keep building until about Survivor Series for WWE and then kind of cool off into Christmas. AEW still has some big events left. They've got All In 2 or 3 weeks.
I think it's next week, isn't it?
Is it? I'm not going to lie. I'm not very keyed in on the specifics.
I think it is next week, yeah.
I did see that they booked a show or the arena in Texas for next year's All In, and that is going to be in July. So
Gonna be going head to head with SummerSlam?
Maybe. I think that works though, or it's either late July or early August instead of being right back to back with All In and All Out. And then the next year they're going back to Wembley. So
is it announced as All In?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I saw a comment earlier that said that they missed their opportunity to call it Y'all In. It's Texas.
Yeah, I saw that. I mean, it's one of the things.
You had to be there.
Yeah, you had to be there, or it's like, this might be funny, but I'm not going to send it in case it's not funny.
I like it.
So, I mean, I wouldn't hate it. I'm sure somebody will make a comedy joke out of it since we're talking about AEW.
Oh, of course.
But like we said, we're here for the middies. I got my drink on hand. If you heard me drinking some Nestle Pure Life, Maximum Male Models put me on. But let's go ahead and get started, Ryan. I've got the first category here. I'll let you start us off, and we'll kind of go back and forth with who starts. But for the first one, we're going to start from the outhouse to the penthouse. We're going to start with the worst gimmick of the year. Yeah.
Oh boy. I think we're probably going to agree on this because as soon as I read this category, I instantly thought of this person. But I'm going with the learning tree, Chris Jericho, as worst gimmick of the mid-year. Oh
yeah.
I don't think it's particularly close. It's like Celtic Shaq. You remember Emmitt Smith on the Cardinals, or like Ronda Rousey post Holly Holm? Just like somebody chugging along that used to be in their prime, and then they fell off and they hung on way too long. That's the state of Chris Jericho right here.
Yeah, I have to say this answer was unanimous. And not to go ahead with a spoiler, but Jericho comes up a lot in my list, and he could have come up more if I really wanted him to.
Yeah, I had to take it easy on him later on because he could have won multiple awards this year, honestly.
And I think he will come December, but we shall see. Yeah, the only other close gimmick to me that I would have put here was the Elite and Okada EVPs. That was my first thing I jumped to, but then I remembered the learning tree. That or what they've done to Shibata.
But he hasn't elevated anybody. When's the last time he's elevated somebody? Chris Jericho.
MJF, maybe?
Did he elevate MJF? I think it hurt MJF working with Chris Jericho because it lasted like 8-9 months.
Yeah.
Well,
remember, that's all the Jericho feuds. Like, remember Eddie got that win on him at Revolution, and it was like, okay, this is a moment that they put him over, and then it literally drug out to like August. And
that's what he's doing it with Hook now.
I know.
He can't have high quality matches anymore. He's like stuck in a weird, I don't know, like weird balance of having go away heat and like getting no reaction from the crowd. I don't know how to explain it, but it's not good. It hasn't been good. And I know we talked about this before. I know we mentioned it on the podcast before, but I remain consistent when I say Chris Jericho should have hung it up. But that match he had with MJF in 2021 should have been it for him. It really should have been. And now we're looking at Celtic Shaq.
I think he would have been remembered way more fondly because I was like a big, like, Jericho is a legend. Like, genuinely, I would have thought about Jericho in the top 5 around that time, just for longevity, constantly reinventing himself, never really having like just awful matches. His gimmicks were typically over, and he had a great feud with MJF, where he had opponents from past, present, future, and now they've taken Big Bill, done nothing with him, taken Hook, done nothing really with him except make him more mid-card, and they've drug former world champion Samoa Joe into this. It's rotten.
Well, you don't think they're elevating Shibata? The wrestler Shibata.
Even though he never wrestles that I see, and you might as well call him the Google Translator. That's the only thing I ever see with him.
Google Translator.
Hey, man.
Trademark that.
Put that on a t-shirt. But next up, and this one, I'm interested to see your answer, but you're just going to have to hear me out. Because next up is best gimmick. And to me, to have the best gimmick for the year, it has to be something new. To me. Like, for instance, Cody. It has been the American Nightmare, the white meat babyface. He's been there the entire year. But for it to be the best gimmick to me, I think it has to be something fresh, or it has to be something largely dominant, like maybe The Undertaker. So when I thought of a fresh new change for somebody that we've either never seen before or haven't seen in a long time, so far, the MIDI for best gimmick to me, the final boss.
Oh, man. I got that. That's me.
Really?
You've been looking at my notes. What's going on? All right. I'm hearing you out. So
now that I broke that down, I feel like a lot of the gimmicks we've seen this year have either been really corny. I feel like the Wyatt stuff is too early to tell.
Oh, I thought you were going to just bury it right then and there.
No. I'm just, the paint's still drying on that. There's been a couple turns, like the Chad Gable turn was good, but was that really a gimmick change? I don't know.
Nope.
So to me, The Rock coming back, originally babyface, he gets that reaction because the people want Cody, then turned into probably the best 3 months of television and feuds and build that we've had in years. That time in wrestling to me is close to the 2021 era of AEW, where they started getting Punk and they got Danielson and they got Adam Cole. Like, for that stretch, it felt like wrestling was just so important. And it's still hot, But there's nothing tops WrestleMania season and a fresh new gimmick for The Rock, heel Rock, which we haven't seen in over 20 years. Insane 3-month run. And I just like there's so many things like memorable moments from that, like him beating up Cody and leaving him bloody by the bus out in the rain. His initial promo with Roman, acknowledging him as the tribal chief, all that. I mean, it's the final boss. I can't say anymore.
It's like if Hollywood Rock had financial stakes in the company. Like,
yeah.
And he was more menacing. And that's what the final boss was. You couldn't go wrong for the final boss as being the best gimmick of the year. And I'm very interested to see where they're going to go later on this year, because I'm sure the final boss is going to make another appearance.
Yeah. I feel like Survivor Series will be the location if everything stays on this track of, Solo Bloodline versus Roman Bloodline. But I don't know. It could be the Rumble too. I wouldn't be shocked.
A lot of meat on the bone still left in this Bloodline stuff.
Yeah.
4 years later, it's still going. I don't think we're going to end for another 2 years. And the final boss injected some life into the Bloodline storyline.
Oh, absolutely. Because you can go back and listen to our shows from that time right before The Rock came back. It kind of felt like, okay, we're running this back with Cody, but it just kind of felt like Roman was phoning it in. And it's not his fault necessarily. There just wasn't much material. But then when The Rock came into the fold, I mean, Jesus, it just blew up and caught fire.
Yeah. And The Rock is the only guy that can make Roman Reigns look like little brother. And he did. He made Roman look like Solo.
Yeah. I wouldn't put him on the same level.
I'm not going to put him in the category of Solo, but still, though, Micah, when you line up the final boss next to Roman Reigns, I mean, who looks like the bigger star?
Oh, it's The Rock, absolutely.
Yeah. Or especially when he's holding the microphone and Roman's just sitting there in the background, nodding along. I mean, he kind of was the Solo.
Yeah, for a little bit.
Yeah.
So next up, I've got a prediction. I think we both have the same answer here because this one's easy and probably won't need much elaboration. Booker of the Year.
Oof. A lot of people have different opinions on this.
I'm going to let you go first, Ryan, and I'm pretty sure we got the same.
I saw the noise, man. I heard all the chatter online. Let HBK cook. Chef HBK, Chef Shawn Michaels. Yeah, he did turn NXT around. NXT is up year over year, which nobody could have predicted. He being HBK, he is using TNA guys to help the overall product, and they do make stars in NXT, Mike. I will give them that. But come on, man. It's Triple H. Triple H is Booker of the Year. What he did with the whole WrestleMania season, when WrestleMania got turned on his head or ear. What's that saying?
Turn on his head.
Yeah, turned on his head right there in the middle of WrestleMania season, Micah. They already had things mapped out going back to last October. They knew where they were going, but then Rock came into the fold around January. Then the whole build got shuffled around, and then Triple H, Rock, Cody, whoever was involved with that, we'll give most of the credit to Triple H, turned everything around, went in a direction nobody would have thought, and WrestleMania 40 turned out to be one of the best WrestleManias they ever produced. And that right there, just that WrestleMania, that won him Booker of the Year, in my opinion.
Yeah, I have to agree. And even then, you can continue on with the build into SummerSlam with the Liv Rhea stuff, the Punk Drew stuff, the ascension of Gunther, like just all of this. It's so well built. And like, while the weekly television isn't just the most compelling thing in the world, the pay-per-views, when they matter, they matter. Yes, it drags a little bit, but WrestleMania 40 is probably the best WrestleMania of the last 10 years. It's probably top 5 all time. And
yeah.
There's no one more to credit with that than Triple H. I mean, like we just talked about it with The Rock. the build around WrestleMania season was so hot. Like, they sold out for weeks on end. And if that don't speak to the genius of Triple H, I really don't know what else to tell you.
Another thing, them tickets aren't cheap. I don't know if you ever looked at those
No.
WrestleMania tickets, Micah, but I mean, you have to open up a second mortgage on your house to buy those tickets. Like ringside
Yeah.
ticket, how much is green shirt guy paying for tickets?
Oh, he's probably not paying a dime, but he
Well,
knows a guy who knows a guy.
okay, Brock Lesnar guy. How much is Brock Lesnar guy paying for tickets?
Oh, I have no idea. I mean, I've looked at tickets in like the risers, and it's like $1,500 per.
My God, crazy! And they broke every gate record they had for WrestleMania.
Oh yeah,
It
and
seems like they're doing that every other month too, breaking a gate record.
which they manipulate that too for like, for this country or for international. But I mean, still, it's an insane concept or just thought to think about how hot wrestling is right now. Even if AEW isn't as popular as they used to be, they're still putting people in, seats. They're still on major network television. That hasn't been a thing for years, since TNA came off national television. And WWE is up year over year on every single thing they've ever done. So
Every metric, yeah. And it's crazy that all the profits, like the profit margin, used to come from the pay-per-view buy rates. Now they are making more money in just the gate alone than they ever did in pay-per-view buys.
yeah.
How insane is that? And they're still getting paid for putting their stuff on Peacock.
Yep. And they're about to get a bag for Netflix too whenever they actually move over there. So
Yeah. And so anybody that had doubts and a little hesitation about how the company would look like under Triple H is eating a lot of crow right now, because it has gone to new heights since Triple H took over as Booker. And it's going to get even higher next year, Micah, when they have John Cena for 35 dates. Like, come
yep.
on, man. So this could go on for another year and a half.
I think the tale of WWE being hot, and this is the last thing I'll say, and then we can move on. It follows the Bloodline story. And like we said, the Bloodline story still has 2 or 3 years to be told. I think WWE will still be hot for another 2 or 3 years because you've still got The Rock Roman. You've still got Jacob Fatu. You've got stars on stars on stars on stars. And I mean, they can't help that. They just keep building them.
It's embarrassment of riches they have. Rock, Punk, Cena. They have the biggest names in the industry.
So, I mean, they can't help but make money right now. And it's a good thing for us viewers. However, we'll move on to the worst promotion of the year.
Oh, God. We could have went with a lot of promotions, actually.
This one, I don't know. I could say something small like NWA, but
like
to me,
Wiregrass Wrestling.
well, I'll hold my tongue. But to me, I think it has to be something with a concerted budget and an effort behind it. And to me, that's Ring of Honor.
Oh, man. Bro, are you looking at my notes? This is 4 awards in a row. Like, what's going on?
I mean, we call a spade here on the Scoop Slam podcast. I got one I almost guarantee we'll differ on, but it's later in the show.
Right. We gotta start disagreeing on some of these.
Yeah. So Ring of Honor, I mean, what can I really say? There's not a good effort behind it to me. There's nothing pushing me to buy Honor Club. People online, I saw this week, kind of have this thing of like, well, Julia Hart's going to be on Ring of Honor this week, or she's apparently returning. And people go, well, why is so-and-so on Ring of Honor? That seems beneath them. And they're like, well, how can we make Ring of Honor bigger if anybody we put on here you say is beneath them? Because you treat the rest of the show like it's AEW Dark. And it's sad, because of the history of Ring of Honor, and it would have been better if you had just closed it down altogether.
Yeah, you just let it die because it was dying a slow death before they bought it too. Really and truthfully, Micah, Triple H killed Ring of Honor. If we're being perfectly honest,
Oh yeah,
he pillaged all their talent and took what they did best and put it on a grand stage. And then once they had nobody left to use, they started getting the New Japan guys and stuff like that. Started getting watered down with a bunch of nobodies along the card. And then the pandemic happened, gave them no fans, and that killed them almost surely. But then it got revived, and then it's being killed again. Just let it die, man. Just let it die. It's over.
I mean, just to me, keep the tape library, but there's no point, or even if it was like, there wasn't an effort behind it, and it was solely an NXT. Like, take your Kyle Fletchers and whoever else, like your more underdeveloped guys, and get them some wins on Honor Club, and kind of treat it like AEW Dark. And that would be fine if you weren't asking people to pay $5 for it, or if it wasn't treated like a separate promotion. Because then it's like, oh, well, he's the Ring of Honor champion. Okay, well, why do I care? Because nobody in Ring of Honor is better than Mark Briscoe. Or like people praise Athena for her work at Ring of Honor. And I'm not going to say that it's not good, but she's the Ring of Honor Women's Champion. She looks second fiddle to Toni Storm.
Who has she made angry for her to not get a chance in AEW?
Oh, I have no idea.
Has anybody ever looked into this story? How long has she been in Ring of Honor? She's been champ for 600 days. Like, can she not make appearances in AEW? Mark Briscoe does. Eddie Kingston did.
And I don't think Athena is making anyone watch Honor Club.
Is she just not? Maybe she's not a good person to be around, or maybe she's backstage politicking to not be on AEW. Why would you not want to be on the main show? I don't know, but there's something weird going on over there. And you know what, Michael?
I got a hypothesis.
Oh, yeah. Okay, let's hear it.
Well, I mean, what's the hypothesis we've been saying for years?
You think when Bobby Lashley comes over, Athena will be in the Hurt Business?
Oh, here we go.
I'm just saying. Oh, and ROH is so bad that it has made AEW bad too.
Yeah.
You can look at the history of when Ring of Honor got bought by Tony Khan. That correlates of the downfall of AEW at its hottest point. That stabbed AEW, and they've just been bleeding ever since. And they have not been able to regain their footing.
I think, and I don't know, I think Tony's just cooked mentally. And when your main show isn't up to par with the guys across the street, you need to focus on your main show and not worry about Ring of Honor. And AEW right now is not a company, not a worldwide brand to me that needs to have a developmental type brand. That's a very like new thing. I mean, I know WCW had the power plant, but like it wasn't like NXT. And I think AEW needs to focus on them right now instead of trying to develop people for the future, because evidently the people that you had and thought were going to be there for the future, the Ethan Pages, the Ricky Starks, you don't treat them good and then they leave. So I would focus on the main roster right now, not worry about Ring of Honor. But we will worry about the next category, which is Worst Feud of the Year.
Oh, God. Well, I'm going to go first, man. I got the Elite versus AEW. Something that started off with so much steam behind it. Them, Meltzer driving Tony Khan into the canvas. And then Tony Khan's dad coming out looking emotional over his son's lifeless corpse. You know, that had a lot of heat on it. And then the next week, I don't even think they were on the show. And then we had this feud with AEW that makes no sense. Like they'll make matches, them being the elite, they'll make matches, but somehow Tony Khan can't override any decisions unless it means something to the plot. I don't know. It's just a weird feud, man. You know, it's a lot of plot holes in it, and nobody cares about it anymore.
Yeah, I think it's missing the stakes that the NWO versus WCW had, where like they ran their own pay-per-view, which sucked pond water, but still the concept was interesting. Like they made the belts their own. They
sold out.
Nah, it wasn't a very good pay-per-view. The first one.
Yeah, 6 versus Eddie Guerrero.
And
ladder match? Yeah, you didn't like that ladder match.
That match was fine. What else was on that card?
I don't remember.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I don't even think Hogan was on the card.
He wasn't on the card?
I'm like 90% sure.
Okay.
So, but anyway, I mean, there's no stakes to it. And it felt main event when it first happened. But in turn, that made Swerve feel secondary. So then you put Swerve in it, and now it feels secondary because you've got MJF Ospreay. So not only has this feud hurt itself, but it's also hurt your new world champion. I'm sorry. Hogan was on the card. He faced the Giant, but it ended in a no contest.
Of course. Yeah, man, and you look at the NWO, you know, those are like intimidating guys. You know, you wouldn't want to see those guys in a dark alley. Then you look over there to the Elite, and you got Matthew Jackson and Nicholas Jackson. Bro, are you afraid of those guys? They're just doing a worse final boss gimmick.
Yeah.
That's basically what it is.
And not to mention that, but they've taken Okada and made him basically a comedy character. And yet when Okada was a free oh well, I don't doubt that. When Okada was a free agent, everybody wanted to share the little Chase U pictures and like make jokes about this is what they would do to him if he got sent to WWE. Congratulations, you played yourself. He's doing that gimmick in AEW, and everybody laps it up like it's good. It's the same. If Okada was in WWE doing that, they would never let it go. That's okay on the other channel.
Well, I'll save my thoughts for later on Mr. Okada, but yeah, I agree, man. The Elite versus AEW feud. They've had random matches too. Didn't they had the Blood and Guts match? What was that? The second big tag match they had? Or was that the first? The first one was Anarchy, right?
Yeah.
Okay, they had Anarchy. Then they had the Blood and Guts match. And are we gonna get a third match, or is that it? Is it finally over? Please?
I really haven't been paying attention to it, to be honest with you. So I don't know where they're going from here. Like, I know they had a match with the Acclaimed, so I assume there's some big blow off at All In, but I don't know what it is yet.
Well, they might have used up all their dates. Supposedly they don't have a lot of dates left in the year. That's why we haven't been seeing the old Young Bucks around.
What do you mean? They have like a signed amount of dates they can work a year?
Oh, you didn't see this story?
No.
So apparently Tony Khan signed the Young Bucks to this latest contract and had like limited dates for them to work. And he's used up a bunch of his dates early on in the year. That's why the Young Bucks haven't been competing at all. Like they haven't defended the tag titles at all, Micah, since they won them. That was what, April?
Yeah. I think they defended them last night.
Okay, well, that was the first time since April. So supposedly they used up Tony Khan used up all the Young Bucks dates for 2024.
Interesting. Booker
Yeah.
of the year, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. So I think there was like a tweet that came in from Ryan Alvarez. I think he was maybe quote tweeting somebody or something like that, saying if you don't like how the Young Bucks are being booked and the lack thereof them being booked, you need to blame Tony Khan because he is booking the Young Bucks and he signed the Young Bucks for those amount of limited dates. So there you go.
No, I actually didn't know that at all. So that's
Good.
interesting.
Keep them off. Use up all of them and just stay home.
That's what I was thinking. Honestly, when he said it was, oh man, we don't have to deal with them anymore. But
Put them on Collision. Put them
yeah.
on ROH too. Use up all those days.
But this is the first thing we will disagree on. My worst feud of the year is the Hurt Business versus the Final Testament. And I got two reasons. One, it did absolutely nothing for anyone. I thought Lashley and the Prophet should have been heel. The Final Testament is in the same place they were then. And two, I don't genuinely believe that a soul can tell me about anything that happened during this feud.
I remember Bully Ray showed up looking like dang, oh man.
Alex Jones.
Alex Jones.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I remember. And they had a street fight that was really bad and probably could have won worst match of the year, honestly.
Well, there was actually another WrestleMania match, and that is our next category, which is worst match of the year. I'll start this one off because I have two. Because I couldn't make my mind up. The first thing that jumped in my head was Chris Jericho versus Shibata.
Or Chris Jericho versus anybody.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Because to me, it was a gimmick match for the FTW title, and Jericho, that was the start of this whole learning tree crap. I remember he had like Legos that he brought out and suplexed them on, or maybe it was like dice or something.
Yeah, it was dice.
Yeah, it was all over the place, but it was like a throwaway Dynamite match, so I don't know how much like I can be like, well, this is the worst.
No, he's had worse. The Ishii match, the Suzuki match.
Yeah.
Any Japanese person that's been in the ring with Jericho over the last year has been really bad.
So that was my like, this match was just actually bad, not like disappointing. My next match is Jimmy Uso versus Jey Uso at WrestleMania 40 because it was disappointing. The build was not amazing, but I expected a little more for two brothers on the biggest stage of them all, and especially after they had a match of the year caliber or contender last year, which I know was a tag match, but this was rotten. Super kick fest. It went like 8 minutes, and it just felt like nothing ever really picked up. And it sucks because it was one of the more interesting matches because we've never seen it before on WrestleMania, and it was just such a letdown. So for that reason, I had to include it.
How do you share a womb with somebody and have negative chemistry in the ring? How does that happen?
I don't. How do you have so much tag team chemistry together and have zero?
Do these guys not work out together? They don't spar? Did they not practice? I don't understand how this could happen. Maybe they were going for more of an emotional storytelling type match, and the crowd just did not care because it was cold in the arena, apparently, because the pay-per-view or PLE was in Siberia, according to everybody making the reports online saying it was so cold, it was like 45 degrees. Come on, grow up. But yeah, man, Jimmy and Jay, that's a good pick for worst match. Good pick. And I think it killed Jay's singles push too. He's kind of been floundering since that.
Think it necessarily. I think Jay has just consistently lost like because remember he was in the King of the Ring, then he lost that, and it's kind of like what they did to LA Knight for the past year, except now that he's US champ, except Jay's just
They have to keep
Jay's
him on
was a
the
little
show.
more like praised, just random hot. LA Knight actually has it to back it up.
They have to keep him on the show because he's so over, but they are not willing to pull the trigger on anything involving him in
Yeah.
like a major title implications on the show.
And I don't think he's that. I mean, he's not great in the ring. I understand he's a little like too showboaty, but him and Ilya and him and Gunther had pretty good matches. I mean, again, they're not barn burners, but they don't necessarily have to be. With Jey Uso, it's more the aura, not the actual in-ring product.
I get it. I get it. Aura is a big thing amongst the kids. The kids today, Micah. Everybody has to have aura, but like they always say, that GD Bell has the ring, man. And
Yeah.
you got to be able to perform in that 20 by 20 ring. And Jay, as far as a top tier main event talent goes, which he is supposedly that, if we're going by crowd reactions, he is one of the worst performers not even in WWE, in both companies, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, I can't dispute that, but I like Jay, but
He's a nice guy, but
the match was buns.
yeah.
For your worst match, Ryan, what did you have? Or did you also have Jimmy versus Jay?
I wanted to go with that, but I had a feeling you were going to go with that. So I went with something that you may have forgotten, but I surely have not. That's Billy Gunn versus Jay White on that random episode of Dynamite. I don't know if you remember this, Micah, but Billy Gunn beat the bejesus out of Jay White for 15 minutes. And Jay White got no heat back from that. He just took that beating. And the match ended in a DQ. So he couldn't beat 65-year-old Billy Gunn, the greatest heel of all time, Jay White. And what has he done since that? That killed his push. Nobody can take him serious because you're selling for a 65-year-old man.
Yeah.
What?
I did completely forget about that, but I
Yeah.
now that you mention it, I haven't seen them in weeks on the show that I remember.
Yeah, bro. The big three from New Japan that they signed, Jay White, Okada, and Will Ospreay. Will Ospreay is carrying that big three hard right now. Like, it's not even close. They have Jay White. Is he still hurt or did he come back? I don't even remember. But I know he was on an ROH pay-per-view maybe it was recently. I don't know. I don't even know, man. And I do follow AEW still, but Jay White is just such an afterthought on that show. He's not even on the Wembley card.
Yeah.
Where's he at?
And he was on it last year.
Yeah. How the mighty have fallen. Do you want to see him this year? I don't.
No, I don't have any reason to be invested in him.
No. Bro, there was no reason for him to get beat up by Billy Gunn. That seemed like a punishment. Even the AEW supporters, like the real D-Riders of AEW, like the Brian Alvarez's and the Dave Meltzers, they couldn't even figure it out. Like, I don't know if what Jay White did in catering or if he cut Tony Khan off in traffic, maybe parked in his parking space. I don't know what happened. But, yeah, man. Jay White versus Billy Gunn on a random Dynamite. That is my worst match of the year. Just because of what the aftermath has looked like. And it was 15 minutes of 65-year-old Billy Gunn beating up a guy that nobody wants to see.
A guy that was heralded as a future AEW world champion.
The future of wrestling is what people are calling him.
Yeah.
Greatest heel of all time, I've heard. Yeah, I've heard that a couple times. I don't know who said it, but...
We'll move on to the next category, which is worst weekly television show.
Well, you want me to go first?
Yeah, I reckon.
Man, SmackDown's been abysmal the last couple months.
Oh,
they're not winning. They're not winning. I'm just calling a spade here on the Scoop Slam podcast. Ever since WrestleMania, when Cody won the WWE title and took it to SmackDown, SmackDown's been pretty bland. There's no heels for Cody to work with. There was no big time storylines besides the bloodline, and that just heated up, and now it's cooled down a little bit. So SmackDown could have won this if we started in April, but I'm gonna go with something that nobody talks about, that nobody watches, and there's no reason for it to be on the air anymore, and that is AEW Rampage. What is that there for, Micah? What is the reason for Rampage now? They have Collision, which Collision is what Rampage used to be. They have sort of the kind of the matches that Rampage used to have back in the day. What's Rampage there for?
At this point, I cannot tell you. It was interesting when it first debuted because it was late night wrestling and it felt a little different because it was like an hour. But they never put anybody interesting on there. Only the diehards watch it, and that's evident by the ratings.
Well, they put Punk on there, and it peaked, and it has never done that number ever again. I think it did 1.4, something like that.
Something around there.
Yeah, and we haven't seen that kind of number since. They just did one of their record low numbers 2 weeks ago.
And even when Punk was, remember, that's where Punk started. He wrestled there for like weeks, and it was like kind of like their Dynamite ratings now. The first couple were in the 9s, and then it was like 8, 7, kind of went around there. Then Punk left, bombed, and it's been in the trenches ever since.
How do you lose 80% of your viewers in 3 years? How does that happen?
Because you don't give them anybody meaning. Like the last meaningful person, and I don't really pay attention to it that often, but like they were putting some Moxley matches on there when he was the world champion. But even then, most people don't really care for Moxley. But like, you know what would do good for a Rampage?
What's that?
An MJF versus, somebody of some actual caliber. Like, for instance, what if they had put that Will Ospreay MJF match on Rampage and advertised it? I guarantee you it would have done over 500,000.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, most definitely. It does hurt the show that it's not live as well. And the fact that it is on not an ideal time slot for cable television. But still, though, they agreed to this. And if you put the right people on the show, then people will watch the show. If you put something on the show that is worth seeing, then people will go see it. I don't know if we can blame the Olympics. I don't know if we can blame WWE being hot. I don't know if we can blame the all-night gas station being open. It's just people don't want to see what they are putting out on Friday nights.
Yep.
And it's going to win my worst weekly show award.
For instance, the card for Rampage this week is Top Flight versus the Maximum Male Models or the MXM collection.
God. Have you seen, pause. Have you seen the screenshots going around of what they're wearing?
Yes.
Okay. Right, the sense.
What did they fight in? Like, did they fight in the flight attendant pants?
What is that? I don't know.
Yeah.
Are they going to occupational gimmicks like WWE did in the mid-90s?
Hey, bring back
if that was on WWE, man, we would have never heard the end of that.
Oh, I know. But that's what I'm saying. There's such a double, like, that's my thing. Like, call a spade. If it's bad, it's bad. It's not, well, it's AEW, so it's okay. No, that is garbage. And unless it was like a rip-off suit and they had their tights up under it, then it was bad. And I think Layla Gray and Leo Rush being with them is fine. But, yeah, no. Or even if she came out in a flight attendant uniform. Okay, whatever. But the wrestlers...
They like the cosplay over there, man.
Yeah. Other than that, we got Nick Wayne versus Kip Sabian, Nyla Rose versus Erica Lay.
Kip Sabian is with the company.
Dude, have you seen him recently?
I haven't seen him since he had a box on his head. I don't know.
There was an episode of Dynamite the other, last week or something that I watched, and he was in a backstage segment. I genuinely did not know who he was. He looks completely different.
I did see that. Didn't Nick Wayne? He yelled at him and he started crying and walked away.
Yes.
Is that what happened? Yes, I.
Because the last thing I remember about Kip Sabian, he had eyeliner and like bleach white hair.
Bro, and he brought up that his dad was dead. Like, I didn't even know that information. And how are we supposed to know that information as
Yeah.
viewers?
So you can tell it's really heating up over there. But not only that, we still got 2 more matches. The conglomeration, Mark Briscoe, Cassidy, and Ishii versus the Outrunners and the Butcher. And then we have Kyle Fletcher and Roosh versus Rhett Titus and KM. I don't know who that is.
Boy, yeah. You tuned in for that?
No. But my worst weekly television show is actually Collision because the downfall from what it was last year compared to now is absolutely immeasurable. And it's evident because the ratings are in the absolute gutters. It was the best television show for about 10 weeks. And now you have Hologram and like Daniel Garcia on it. Like what? Like, matter of fact, while we're playing this little game, and we'll speed things up because we still got a lot to go. Let's go to the Collision card for Saturday.
Oh God, we got to.
I mean, well, we'll just hit it real quick. So first up on the lineup here, or is this last week's? This may be last week's. Hold on. Here we go. EWrestlingNews.com. These guys look credible. So there's only one match scheduled for Collision. We are 3 days away. FTR versus the Acclaim to determine the number 1 contenders for the AEW World Tag Team Championships.
Wait, the Acclaimed aren't they all ready to tag the number 1 contenders for the tag titles? They beat the Elite, didn't they? A month ago.
Yeah, but their match ended in DQ on Dynamite. Apparently, I have not seen it.
When? What match? Match?
This past week.
No, the Acclaim beat the Elite long time ago, months ago.
No, I know, but they had a match last night, and there was a DQ finish.
They had a match for tag. Oh, dang, yeah, I did see that. But
so, Collision is in the gutter, but we'll move on. We got a lot to get to still. Most disgusting promotional tactic. I have 2 because we kind of went one. I wouldn't consider it a promotional tactic, but it's something that you need to know because I didn't know it. But my true answer, because it's something that they had to promote, was the airing of the brawl out or the brawl in footage.
That's mine.
Yeah. Between Punk and Jack Perry. I mean, it did absolutely nothing for nobody. Jack Perry is a little more over today. Punk is more over in the other company than anyone there is. And he didn't lie about anything he said in that interview. Or if he did, that video did not prove it wrong.
No. Tony just got his feelings hurt because Punk went on a podcast to tell the truth, his side of events, which actually, when we saw the footage, is exactly how he explained it. Exactly what he said happened. And it just painted Tony Khan in a terrible light. It made Jack look like it made him look like a punk. Now he's the scapegoat. What is he the scapegoat of? We don't know. But he is the scapegoat, and he's one top heels on their brand. He went on an excursion in New Japan. I don't know, man. Did this help Jack Perry? No. Did this hurt him? It helped the ratings for that one night, and then they haven't reached that 800,000 mark since then. So, yeah, man. Most disgusting promotional tactic, it has to be the backstage footage.
But again, like Punk said, it just makes him the biggest draw in 2 companies. So, again, you're not really like, and it would be different too if the footage was wildly different than what Punk said, because then it makes Punk like a liar about anything he said. But it was pretty much tit for tat what he said. So I don't really know what they were trying to accomplish.
There was no like legal issues by airing the footage. So why did we air this footage a year ago when we had Punk on the roster?
Yeah.
And we could have made some money off this.
Well, I mean, they decided to fire him after, but this thing is more just the most disgusting thing that's happened in wrestling this year. It's not really a promotional tactic. So I found this on Reddit, and I'm getting this off Odyssey.com. This says registered sex offender from Georgia worked on an NWA taping at a high school.
All right, who's this guy?
So the NWA had a taping in Knoxville, Tennessee at Carnes High School. A Georgia man named Raymond Luther Rawls was working for the NWA. He is best known in the pro wrestling industry as Rick Michaels. He wrestled for years, making appearances in ECW, and then later as a booker and promoter for NWA Wildside and other promotions. He apparently trained AJ Styles along the way, worked for WWE as a costume tailor before being fired in 2005 because he pled guilty to the sexual exploitation of a child, and he is currently on the Georgia Sex Offender Registry.
Did he not do a background check on this guy?
I am assuming not. So,
does he still work there?
I don't know, but like I heard nothing about this. This was never.
I saw a headline. But it got swept under the rug because nobody cared about it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I get it. They're a small company or whatever, but I don't know if he was like not promoted, or I guess promised to be there, but like still, that is highly inappropriate for a company to either not know that about a guy and then book him on a show at a high school.
Yeah, I thought that's a good pick. I thought you were gonna go with the soft ground or that Ugandan wrestling.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, apparently they've been scamming people they've been saying how they're so poor and all the wrestlers are homeless or something to that effect. And then guys are very notable names in the pro wrestling business have been donating money to, get them a wrestling ring and get them proper gear and stuff like that. But then I guess the guy that's running it, and again, it's just, it's been a while since I read this story, but the guy that's running it is not using the funds how it is being promised that it is going to be used. So, yeah, little shady business tactics going around in where are they at? Are they in Uganda?
I believe so.
Right.
There is a guy. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say I haven't watched that. I don't know.
I haven't watched any of it. I will say this: I read about half of an article and then kept scrolling to see how long the article was, and it was crazy long. Which, I mean, props to the guy, but I just wasn't reading all that.
Yeah,
Happy for you, or sorry that happened. But if you're really interested in the SGW stuff,
too long, didn't read.
Yeah,
make it some clip notes, man. I can't read all of
it. Give me the TLDR. But I mean, it was extensive. But Cassidy Haynes of Bodyslam.net wrote a really good article piece about this. But when I say article, I mean New York Times bestseller. So be ready to sit down for that and ponder for a while. But it was very in depth.
Get your morning coffee. Get the paper.
Oh yeah.
Set aside 30 minutes because you're gonna need it.
Yeah, you can go ahead and drop your morning turd too. It'll probably take all of that time after your coffee, but let's go ahead. We are closing in on the last couple. Well, we still got more than half to go, so we're going to kind of rapid fire some of these. Best pay-per-view or worst pay-per-view /PLE. Ryan, I'll take the lead on this one. I got two for two different reasons. I got Double or Nothing or Elimination Chamber.
Okay.
Double or Nothing was just an absolute crap show of a million different things going on at once. However, there was some entertaining stuff on there. There was some light in the darkness. So
Right.
I'll tell you what I liked and tell you what I didn't like. So, first off, they did have the good God Almighty, the Wikipedia page is about as long as that article I was mentioning. Osprey versus Roddy was fine. Maybe there was less than Mercedes and Willow I thought was a good match. It was a good opening match for Mercedes to introduce herself. Swerve Christian was fine. But then we got the anarchy in the arena, craziness. You got Adam Copeland breaking his leg in that steel cage match. You got Moxley not squashing, but defeating Takeshita. That's when Jericho really started the learning tree crap. So, yeah, overall, what are we doing?
Yeah.
And as for Elimination Chamber, it was just extremely boring. Do you remember a single match that happened on that card?
Rhea versus Nia.
Yep.
That's it.
And that was pretty much all you needed to know. They had the Elimination Chamber matches, but they weren't anything to write home about.
I don't remember.
Becky won one of them.
Oh, God. Yeah. That's probably
the Judgment Day beat the New Catch Republic, and Drew won the men's. And then you had Rhea and Nia. It was a 4-match card in a stadium show. And, yeah, it just very lackluster.
You know what? I do remember the men's chamber match. It just had a lot of, I don't know, the pinfalls in that match was kind of weird because nobody got pinned clean in an Elimination Chamber match. But yeah, I agree. That was not their best.
Yeah. So, for you, sir, what's your worst PLE or pay-per-view?
So who won that? Are you giving that Elimination Chamber?
You'll have to tune in to the end of the year.
Oh, okay.
Scoopies.
Okay. I'm going with Forbidden Door. 16 matches, Micah.
Jesus Christ.
No, I'm not kidding. It had 16 matches. AEW beat most of the foreign talent. They beat the New Japan guys and the AAA guys or CML guys, whoever they have on the show. I don't know. They won 90% of those. Moxley had his worst match of all time on this show with Naito. Do you remember that match? You remember watching that? Or did you skip that?
I think I skipped it.
Okay, well, that was one of the worst matches all year. And MJF phoned it in. I don't think we didn't review this show on the podcast, did we?
I think we did. We were going to, and then we never got around to it because that's when we had internet issues.
Okay, well, MJF phoned it in with the magician guy. I forget his name. It was finisher kickout fest all night too, man. Just every match seemed like it went 20, 25 minutes. Of course, everybody online was saying that it was a banger pay-per-view and AEW never misses and TK, please sign Stephanie Vacour and Osprey with a match of the year. It just, the pay-per-view sucked, man. The Osprey and Swerve match was good, but it wasn't enough to save the show because when they were wrestling, it was like past midnight. I was ready to go to bed, and I had been watching wrestling for over 5 hours at that point. So, yeah, AEW, Forbidden Door, the worst Forbidden Door they've had, the worst pay-per-view of the year for the mid-year Scoopies, man. What's next, man? Unless you got anything to say about Forbidden Door.
No, I mean, I agree. The Osprey Swerve was fine. The Mercedes match was good, but it was mainly good because she got outshined.
Outshined.
Outclassed. Yeah, by Stephanie Vacour, who then gets signed by WWE like 2 weeks later. And the only other thing I remember is that Blue Thunder Bomb that Takeshita hit through 2 tables. So
For the sickos.
great card. Best pay-per-view / PLE. I think we both will easily pick the same thing. WrestleMania Night 2 is the only correct choice.
Yeah. Oh, heck yeah. That's what I got.
So obviously we all know what happened. Literally the greatest like ending, or one of the greatest endings to WrestleMania of all time, with just all that happened in that match. And then Cody's in the ring, and it's just it's such a said that it felt like the season or the series finale of wrestling. And
Yeah,
that is probably the greatest praise that you can give a WrestleMania main event.
Oh, because it was just the culmination of everything. You know, the Dusty's kid finally winning the big one for Dusty. Roman Reigns almost 4-year long reign ending. And you had all the cameos, which people love the cameos, the surprises. The match was really good too. Probably not as good as the one they had the year prior, but it made up for it with all the bells and whistles. And not even just the main event, which the main event was great. But we did have Bayley and Io Sky. That was Bayley's best match of the year. LA Knight versus AJ Styles was pretty good. Priest Money in the Bank cash in was really a surprise that nobody saw coming.
Yeah, it was a good moment.
Yeah, it had a great moment at the end too with CM Punk and Drew McIntyre. That kicked off, that put gasoline on the feud they had. The U.S. title match with Logan Paul, Randy, and KO. That was good too.
Yeah.
So you cannot go wrong with WrestleMania Night 2 as the PLE of the year. Like, not pay-per-view, PLE.
Yeah. So next up, we got worst announcer.
Oh.
I also think we will have the same answer for this, but I don't know. You may choose somebody else. I'll let you go first.
I got Tony Schiavone.
Yeah, that's the one I thought you
were. Man, the guy adds nothing to the show, man. He spent decades in the business, and once WCW went out of business, he started working at Starbucks. So that should tell you of the talents of one Tony Schiavone. And then he got a charity hire from Tony Khan, and he has been stooging and not adding anything to commentary for the last 5 years, 4 years. How old is AEW? 5 years old?
5.
Okay, well, he's been stooging for 5 years now. I'm sick of hearing him. He needs to be off that show, especially when you have great commentators just sitting there on the sidelines. Is Ian Riccaboni still employed?
I think he's on Ring of Honor.
What about Caprice Coleman? Is he still there?
Last I heard, he was wrestling on indie shows, so maybe.
Okay, Nigel McGuinness.
He's on Collision.
Okay. So we'll never see him. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah. Well, see, Schiavone's on both shows, though.
Oh, of course. Gotta have him on both shows. Gotta have the stooge on both shows to add nothing and tell everybody he's having such a great time and to just agree with everybody. He doesn't even, bro, if there's if Taz is saying something that's, useful to the match, Schiavone would just say, "Oh, that's a good call, man. That's a great call, Taz." Like, shut up. What is that? If that's what you got to say, just don't even say anything, bro. Just sit there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything to dispute with you. I think, too, one of the most evident things this year that, irked me, and people thought it was funny, was when Mariah May was in the ring and she was about to cut her first promo after her heinous act on Tony Storm. And he just says, "Speak, B." Like, why is the announcer saying that?
It was funny, Michael. You didn't hear what he said? Did you not hear the last part?
Yeah, it's just funny when, okay, for instance, you know how many times I can remember Jim Ross cussing? But most of the time, it was when Triple H had done something dastardly and we were going off the air.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know, and it's the cadence, but he's actually not my worst TV announcer. I went with Excalibur because he's the lead for their show, and I absolutely hate the way that he announces things and just he goes on and on. He gets tickled about stuff, and then he drags the rest of them down. Like, honestly, you could pick anybody off that Dynamite crew, and I probably wouldn't disagree with you other than Taz. But I can't blame you for putting Taz. I just know that Taz is good when he's not with these two.
Oh yeah, big time. And it's hurting the show, man. The commentary has a lot to do with selling the show. And if you got two guys on the commentary team that are unbearable to listen to, then I don't really want to watch this.
No, not at all. Like that was one of the things that made the Attitude Era interesting. Despite what you think about Jerry Lawler or Jim Ross, that is like one of the most legendary commentating crews of all time. Or people always loved the guy from Continental. What's his name?
Continental?
Yeah, I mean he's like the South announcer. From the territory days. Not Gordon Soley.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought you were talking about. I don't know.
Maybe it was Gordon Soley. I don't know, but people just maybe that's yes, I think that is who I'm thinking of. But he had like an official sounding voice. He laid it out plain for anybody to understand it. But instead it's El Hijo del Vikingo hits the 730 Centon Plancha Splash, and he's going for the cover. 1, 2, 3. Oh, he didn't get it. Shivani, that's funny, isn't it? Oh, yeah, I'm having a great time, Excalibur. This is hilarious. I can't believe I get to see guys flip every week. Like, that right there is the commentary. There's nothing of value added. There's no legitimacy. It's just people talking.
Yeah, and it's so you painted a good picture right there. It adds nothing. They get into some kind of comedy hour when they're all together, and it's just the only people that enjoy it are themselves. They're just popping themselves.
And it's not just us saying it. It's not just Jim Cornette, because everybody wants to say, oh, well, he just hates AW. It's not just him saying it. Like, people online do not like Tony Schiavone, do not like Excalibur. And you have if you want to do a 3-man booth, you could have Nigel, Taz, and Ian Riccaboni, and that would probably be top to bottom the best announcing team.
Yeah. Just send Tony back to Starbucks, get Excalibur on ROH, and bring, I don't care, the popcorn vendor to head announcer on Dynamite, and it would be a huge step up.
Lance Russell is who I was thinking of.
Lance Russell, okay.
All right. But we'll move on to best announcer. And for me, I already mentioned him a minute ago. To me, it is still Nigel McGuinness.
Yes, I guess, yeah.
Even though he's buried on the secondary show, Nigel, like, his clips still trend on Twitter, and it's not like it's mainly stuff to like Danielson, or it's little puns here and there, but it's not in like a basement dweller nerd comedy way. Like, it's a dig or it's something funny, but he doesn't like lay it out there for you to laugh at it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, he reminds me of Lawler back in his prime.
Yes.
He's so quick. He's quick-witted. And he was not like that. Towards the end of his WWE run, he was not like that. I don't know if he was probably disinterested in the product, was checked out, but AEW Nigel McGuinness is a breath of fresh air, and I wish he was on the weekly primetime show. I mean, Collision is there, but nobody's watching Collision.
Oh, we already talked about that. Nigel would be such a good addition to Dynamite. That would make it 10 times more bearable. And He's great on the pay-per-views. I don't understand why they refuse to put him on the main show.
Politicking, I don't know. It's some weird loyalty that Tony Khan has to the Shivani and the Excaliburs and stuff like that, man. You know how Tony Khan can be. He had to almost get held at gunpoint to get JR on commentary.
Well, we'll move to best non-wrestler. Again, I think that we will have the same answer because I believe this is a no-brainer.
I don't know about this. I don't know if we have the same answer.
Uh-oh. Well, do you want me to go first? Because I feel like I have the obvious one, or do you want to go first?
You can hit me. Hit me with it.
Okay. I got to go with Paul Heyman again. I know he's been off TV recently, but I remember him cutting promos whenever Punk returned, and it was like a minute. And I mean, he just summed up everything that was surrounding the Punk return, or even when Punk and him had that segment on SmackDown where Solo was going to attack Punk, and he just had that look in his face like he was genuinely miserable, and he was like, I'll just please leave and promise me one thing. Punk was like, okay, what's that? And he said, take me with you. And it was such a genuine like cry for help. Paul is the greatest wrestling manager of all time.
And you didn't even mention the segment in MSG when him saying that you are not my tribal chief got him the biggest pop reaction of his entire career, which is Paul been in the business, 40 years now. So yeah, man, Paul Heyman's that's a great pick.
Yeah.
But it's not the pick I got, Mike. I wanted to give it to Paul, man, but I'm gonna give it to Nick Aldis. I am enjoying what he is doing on SmackDown. It is a breath of fresh air to have a babyface GM that is actually, I mean, he stands up for himself. He's not just a pushover, like a Teddy Long. I mean, you could probably get the best of Teddy Long if you wanted to, but Nick Aldis is like what, 6'3", 6'4", menacing looking. You're not gonna just talk to Nick Aldis any kind of way. You're not just gonna run his show how you want to run it. When Nick Aldis puts his foot down, then people listen. And the way his segments go, I don't know, man. I like Nick Aldis as a performer, and I am very interested to see if he can, put the trunk back on and get back in the ring. Because how he's doing right now as a on-air personality, it's working for me, man. And they got a star right there with Nick Aldis if he ever wants to put back on the trunk.
I don't think it's a bad pick at all. He's definitely a breath of fresh air, like you said, into like general managers, because you have to respect him. Like, you don't really have a choice. Like, he looks like somebody that would, you push me? Okay, I'll push back. So I think he is a very good addition to general managering, which I never would have thought that's what they hired him on for.
And you know what? They have Nick Aldis, former NWA World Champion, and the Raw has Adam Pearce, former NWA World Champion. So I would not be surprised if down the line we get Nick Aldis versus Adam Pearce, and I'm pretty sure they could have a good match together, even in their advanced age.
Oh yeah, it would be cool to see them at like WrestleMania, like a Raw versus SmackDown thing, and it ain't got to be long, like 10 or 12 minutes, but I think it would be pretty good.
Yeah.
So following that, we have Rookie of the Year, which
this is an easy one.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, bro, it's Javon Evans. Who else is out there? I know Javon Evans probably wasn't trained this year, but this is the first year I'm seeing him. This is the first year I'm seeing him on NXT. So in my eyes, he's a rookie. He's 21 years old. He has some size. He needs to bulk up a little bit. He's natural on the mic, Micah. I don't know if you've heard many of his promos, the young OG, but he has something. It's there. It just needs to be fine-tuned a little bit. He sounds natural when he's speaking. He's not bad in the ring. He's really good. He does all the flying stuff, all the moves. He can hit them. Maybe needs to work on his instincts a little more, his psychology or whatnot. But as far as the total package goes, a 20-year-old Javon Evans is as perfect as you can get when it comes to a future star in WWE.
Dispute your claim. I think he is an interesting prospect. But I always get a little confused on what the terms of rookie of the year is, because are we talking about, this isn't my answer, but like technically since Jacob Fatu has never been on national television, would you consider him a rookie like for our purposes or no? Because he's been a world champion in other places.
You know how I looked at it as more of a newcomer of the year, and not exactly because Jacob Fatu was known beforehand. Javon Evans was talked about in some circles, mostly on TikTok, on his little they have like 30-second highlight clips of him doing cutters and stuff like that. Stuff that, it's just the high points of it. But when you really sit down and watch Javon Evans, he has everything. But yeah, I don't know if we consider Jacob Fatu a rookie, Mike. I don't know about that.
So I have a different kind of pick then, and he's been in WWE for a little bit, but he's never really been like a mainstay on any television show. And he's only appeared like twice. So this is more of a prediction. I got Odyssey Jones.
Okay. Not a bad pick.
I know he's been there for a while, but like he really just came up to the main roster. He never won a belt in NXT, and he really never was like a focal point of the television show. So to me, I still kind of would consider him a rookie. And I don't know. I was sold after the double sidewalk slam on two 300-pound guys. So again, prediction, not necessarily a lock for it, but I just feel like that he will be the rookie of the year by the end of the year.
Like, bro, he's had 2 appearances. You giving him the award off 2 appearances?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, man.
I'm sold. I'm putting all my money, I'm selling all my Austin Theory stock at half the price I bought it for. Now I'm putting it in Odyssey Jones.
He's definitely a future star, though. They're in good hands with Odyssey Jones and Braun Breaker and Jacob Fatu. Those are the guys you want to build your company around, not Wheeler Yuta and Daniel Garcia and Hook. Like, are you seeing a difference here? I don't know.
Well, next up, we have most underrated wrestler of the year. And I got one that people know how good he is. I just think everybody knows except for Tony. Because the guy cannot get booked to save his life. And when he does, nothing really comes of it, or he loses. And I got Konosuke Takeshita.
What are you doing here? You stealing all my material?
Wow, I'm very surprised that you wrote this one down. Not because I think that you dislike Takeshita, but just because I thought maybe he would fly under the radar of like being, I guess, eligible for this award, because people know how good he is, but the dude can't get booked to save his life. And if he does, it's always a one-off match that he wins or he loses, and then nothing happens with him for months. So,
you remember when he beat Kenny Omega last year on pay-per-view? Remember that? Oh,
twice.
Okay. Yeah. I think we're the only ones that remember that.
Yeah, evidently. And I mean, like I said a minute ago, he had that match with Moxley, but he lost. So
it was a non-title match. It was a non-title match too. Like, they had no respect for him.
Yeah. And I thought maybe it was like one of those things because he didn't come from New Japan and it was for the New Japan belt. But he's over wrestling in New Japan right now. In the G1.
Apparently doing some good work over there too.
I don't doubt it, because he's a top 5 wrestler in AEW in the ring. And I know that the language barrier might be a thing, but he has Don Callis, and Don Callis is a little goofy. But if they would get rid of the family and just make Konosuke Takeshita and Don Callis a pair, then it would be fine.
But no, we can't have that. We can have them in New Japan. You can go watch them at 5 a.m. on their streaming services, Micah. But we're not gonna get them booked on Dynamite
For the sickos. Instead, we'll have Trent Beretta.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Love me some Trent Beretta.
So speaking of a guy I just mentioned, most overrated. I got John Moxley, and I'm pretty sure he was my winner last year.
Come on, man. Take it easy on him.
I don't have to elaborate. If you've been listening to the Scoop Slam podcast, you know I'm not a fan of Moxley. You know what I think of his work. I think it's all the same. He's cut down on the bleeding a bit, but his matches never impressed me. He's just there, and yeah.
You know what? He doesn't. This year that he's had, John Moxley, I mean, has he done anything like of note in AEW? I know he won New Japan champion, but has he been booked any singles storylines in this year? I don't think he has. I don't remember. I'm not even just being funny. I don't remember.
The only thing I can remember, and it wasn't a single storyline, it was just like the BCC versus
the Mexicans.
Yeah.
Not being
CMLL.
racist. I mean, yeah, it was the Mexican wrestlers. I remember that, but as far as singles feuds, has he had any? Can't think of any.
Nope. Not off the top of my head, not at all.
He's one of their biggest stars, and they just been poorly booked. His match has been poorly worked, and I will say this again, Micah, but he was my favorite member of the Shield, so he's not winning this award from me. I got Okada. And I did not watch New Japan faithfully. I caught a couple matches of Okada. Always heard that he was the greatest wrestler to ever grace God's green earth. And he's gotten here, Micah. He's gotten to America, the United States. There was a big bidding war for Okada. If we follow the dirt sheets, supposedly WWE wanted him. Supposedly AEW made him a better offer. People online, the AEW sickos, didn't want him in WWE because he was going to be doing nothing but comedy, and he was going to be in Chase U, and he was going to be a Japanese stereotype. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, he's doing bad comedy, and he's a Japanese stereotype in AEW. But it's great, Micah, because he says the B word. You didn't know that?
That's good stuff right there. Good work.
Oh, that's great stuff. Oh, heck yeah. He uses the B word that's his catchphrase, Mike. That's funny. He doesn't speak English, but he says the B word.
It's like I told you earlier whenever we were talking about this over text. I said, oh, I get it now. I just didn't get it before. Now I'm going to laugh about it online with my only friends I have because I'm a loser.
Bro, it's just his promos are really bad too. Even when he's not saying the B word in his promos, it sounds like he's a hostage and he's reading cue cards. Yeah. It just doesn't sound natural. He's not. I think he's fallen into that trap of Japanese talents when they come over to America that not a lot of guys can shake off. Shinsuke had this. I think Finn Balor had this too. I know he's not Japanese, but he did spend a lot of time in New Japan. Where guys get here from New Japan after wrestling such a hard style, and they just pretty much quiet quit. They just like soft retire. And they just live off past glories. Like they're still calling him on TV. I kid you not. Excalibur lets us know every week that Okada is the best wrestler in the world today. Like, oh, what? Are we watching the same program?
Yeah.
Where?
What's the last great match he had?
I don't know, but he says the B word. I don't know if you
That's
knew
good
about
enough.
that. Yeah, that makes up for it. He's funny. He's a comedy guy. He's the best wrestler in the world. He's the funniest guy in the world too.
Yep. You can't tell me that if you put him and Takeshita together with Don Callis as the manager, that it wouldn't be better than this.
Or you just put Takeshita in Okada's spot and he would make it work. And don't give him the goofy comedy stuff.
Just make him an enforcer. I mean,
Yeah.
God, is that so hard to do?
No, it's not. It can't be. It can't be.
So, yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with you on that one. Because they've given me nothing to make me think that he's the best wrestler in the world.
Oh, but we have to get force-fed that down our throats every week that he's the greatest wrestler. And another thing that bothers me, Micah, and we can move on, but when guys online, the basement dwellers, were saying that Okada is, he was born to be the funniest wrestler in the world, but forced to be the greatest wrestler. Like, get out, shut up. Go get laid. Go touch grass.
Yeah, that's a chronically online take. And I mean, I know we have a podcast, so we can only say so much, but I mean, good God, dude.
Who's laughing at that?
Yeah. So, following that, we've got worst wrestler of the year, and I also think we'll have the same answer for this one. Say it with me, ladies and gentlemen. Chris Jericho.
Yeah. Refer back to our previous statement.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing more to say about Jericho. I think we've dug his grave twice. Best feud of the year, and I'm interested to see what you have, because for me, I put the Final Bloodline versus the Nightmare.
Okay, let's hear it out.
So to me, I know that Punk Drew is maybe what you may have or a lot of other people may have. I think it's still building. And so for right now, the payoff to me from the entire Rock, Cody, Roman thing, I mean, it literally carried both nights of WrestleMania as the main event. The Rock coming back, we already said he got best gimmick of the year. This was must-watch television. The Rock was must-watch Twitter. Like when he would upload these 10-minute dialogues just going off on everybody, you had to watch it.
Yeah.
So between that, the story that had been building for 4 years with the Bloodline, then somewhat interrupted by this guy who came in 2 years, but the fans have gravitated towards him so much, which we pleaded for Rock versus Roman, but we want Cody trended for 2 days on Twitter. What other wrestling storyline can you really say that about? So for me, as of right now, feud of the year, but by the end, that may change with Punk and Drew. I think it's close.
I went with Punk and Drew, me personally, but you are right that it is not done, so it's kind of hard to put that as number one. But I've been enjoying myself a lot with this Punk Drew stuff. And it surprised me, man, because when Punk came back, Drew McIntyre is probably going to be one of the last names I was excited to see him feud with. But yet, this could be Punk's best feud since the MJF one was great too. So I say it's maybe a toss-up between those two. But yeah, Drew and CM Punk is peaking at the right time. They have made you interested, even though one guy cannot physically compete in the ring and is still hot as ever, which is, I mean, a testament to the well-built feud and the guy's talents too. Drew McIntyre's picked it up a notch since he started feuding with Punk, and it's helped McIntyre like big time. Like it's helped him out as he's one of the top guys in the entire company right now, just because of the feud with Punk. And their match at SummerSlam was decent, it was passable. But I feel like they are holding back on the real good stuff for the back end of this feud. When they can actually get physical. Now they can. So we might get a Hell in a Cell match. But what they've been doing so far is I mean, you can't write a better feud than that, Micah.
Yeah. I think it just needs time to build. I would absolutely not be shocked by the end of the year if it is feud of the year. So we shall see. That's the good thing about the middies is this can change, and I welcome that change because fingers crossed we're going to be there for Bad Blood in Atlanta, and I would really love to see the payoff to this feud there. But next up, we will move to Women's Wrestling MVP. Not Wrestler of the Year, but more who's drawing the house. And Ryan, I got to ask who you got first.
I'm all over the place with these Scoopies, man, because I got Rhea Ripley, even though she was hurt, but I don't see anybody else that is as big of a draw as she is. So I guess we gotta go Rhea, but who's her competition?
The only people I would think maybe Tony Storm, Bailey, or maybe
serious, bro.
Liv.
I'm about to hang up.
No, I'm not saying like my answer was also Rhea. I'm just saying those are the world champions currently. So like technically your draws, I would say would be those. But I said Rhea, even though I said Elimination Chamber sucked pond water, she was the main event and it was in her home country. So you gotta imagine a good portion of that audience was there to see her in her hometown win.
That's a good point. Yeah.
How many other women can you say that for? Even if she was hurt for 3 or 4 months.
I had a pretty decent match too that night. I remember liking it.
Yeah, I thought it was a really good match. Well, it was solid. It was solid. Let me not get too far ahead of myself. But Rhea she commands your attention, and she's really the only one that you can say that with, to me. Now, for United States MVP, I had probably the obvious answer. It's got to be Cody.
Yeah.
He's been here. He's the top dog right now. Even if SmackDown is a little lackluster, their ticket sales are through the roof. And a lot of that was finishing the story. All of those TV sellouts were to see him and The Rock and the Bloodline and what may happen there because he was pulling double duty on SmackDown and Raw. So I don't really think there's a debate there. Your other world champions for the year would be Swerve, Priest, Seth, and yeah.
Come on, man. Be serious. It's Cody. He's still the top guy. He is the top draw on SmackDown. He's the WWE champion. The headliner of the biggest WrestleMania in history. So yeah, man, it's obviously Cody. Cody, this should be named after him.
Yeah, because honestly, he's probably had it for 3 years in a row now.
You could say maybe Roman. Roman can have a conversation. He can sit at the table.
Yeah.
But because he's not there all the time, it's hard to put him in that spot. This used to be Roman's award, though.
Yeah. And honestly, I would put Punk at the table, too. And I know I'm a Punk glazer, but, I would say that Punk draws more of a crowd than Swerve, Seth, Priest.
Easily. Bro, he's on the sidelines and he's selling the most t-shirts in the company.
Yeah.
Like, he is making up for the contract they gave him by not even wrestling, just by selling t-shirts.
So, I feel like he also belongs at the table. But next up, we're getting into the really big awards, so I'm interested. I'm really interested later. There is one you might hang up with me. Match of the year. I think this is obvious to me, but we'll see. What you got, Ryan, for match of the year?
Well, we talked about it earlier. I got Cody and Roman. Like you said, it felt like the series finale of the WWE. Felt like a new era was being started at the end when we got christened. The new era is the Paul Levesque era, which, I mean, the Paul Levesque era is under a great, it's off to a great start. But what kicked it off is this match, Roman versus Cody. Really good match. Not as good as last year's match, but still, because of the magnitude of the match, It's hard to top that, really. It's not about the moves, Micah. It's about how it makes you feel. Now, if I'm getting too cheesy, just tell me.
No, I mean for real. But that match had people watching it. Like there was people on Facebook that I know that like don't even really like wrestling, and they were invested in that story and that
Yeah.
match and that moment. And it was one of
Bro,
those moments in time that like I'll always remember. And even if the in-ring wasn't just as good as Osprey versus MJF, like it had the most eyeballs and it felt like the Super Bowl.
and they told a great story with Roman finally getting his payback on Seth, and it costing him his title.
Yeah.
That was, as far as long-term booking, I mean, how can you do anything better than a 10-year long story that got wrapped up in that match? And bro, it was so emotional that the announcer, Samantha Irvin, she was crying after the match. You couldn't even understand her announcement at the end because she was so choked up.
I mean, I just think it's obvious. I really don't think anything will come close by the end of the year. But I
Yeah.
mean, I've been wrong before, like once or twice. But
You can't, I mean, you can't get any bigger than that. Biggest match, biggest WrestleMania, biggest audience they've ever had. It's got to be Cody and Roman.
yeah. Following that, we got best weekly TV show. You kind of hit me with a low blow earlier. I said
Oh man,
SmackDown, and
no,
I know that SmackDown has been rough the past little bit,
it's
but you still got to think the Roman Bloodline Rock stuff was
oh yeah,
mainly on SmackDown at the beginning of the year,
great stuff.
and we got the Bloodline stuff now, the debut of Jacob Fatu, the turn of Paul Heyman. It hadn't
Yeah,
been great, but I think when you include the beginning of the year stuff with what has happened in the past couple weeks, I don't know. I still think it edges out Raw currently. Now, by the end of the year, if Raw was in this seat, I wouldn't be shocked at all.
I think the whole lack of a mid card champion hurt the show too. As
Yeah.
far as because Logan Paul wasn't there on the weekly TV shows, like defending the title or even having matches. That hurt the show a lot. And the fact that Cody has no heels to work with, they have to. They're Cody is facing Kevin Owens at the next PLE because there's no heels to work with on SmackDown. It has just
Yeah.
been lifeless. It has been very bland the last couple months, Micah. So I can't give it that nod. The first half of the year, not even the first half, the first quarter of the year was great stuff with the Bloodline, like you said, the Rock, Final Boss, great stuff. But I'm gonna go with Monday Night Raw. And if you would have told me 5 years ago that this would be winning my weekly show of the year, I would have called you insane. But I mean, it really is the Live, Judgment Day, Rhea, Love Triangle type thing. That's been great stuff. Great television, gotten a big audience as far as online engagement and actual TV audience. The CM Punk, Drew McIntyre stuff. How can you? I mean, we just talked about it. I mean, that's my feud of the year. It's been going on mostly Raw. And not to mention some of the final boss stuff with Cody happened on Raw as well.
It did.
We can't forget about the rain episode when Rock took Cody outside in the rain and whipped him with a belt. And when the show went off the air, he kept on whipping him with the belt, the blood, and that's good stuff, man. Raw has had a lot of memorable segments this year. Something that you couldn't say about Raw for the last 4 or 5 years prior to this. There's not been a lot of great memorable moments like how it used to be. Like you remember, it felt like we were getting a memorable moment on Raw every other week back
I mean,
then.
I remember when it was the flagship show.
Yeah, yeah. And hopefully, when they go to Netflix, they turn it up a notch again because they've been doing a lot of good things on Raw. I forgot to even mention the Wyatt Six debut. How that was done. I enjoyed that a lot too. I mean, it's been a lot of memorable stuff that happened on Raw. And as far as weekly television show goes, yeah, there's a lot of filler in Raw, but still, when you take all the great stuff and put it up against all the bad stuff, I think all the great stuff outweighs all the bad stuff by a lot.
I agree. Like I said, I mean, I would not be surprised at all if by the end of the year I say that Raw is the thing too, if it's a unanimous.
It's just too long though. It's 3 hours, too long.
Yeah, that's my main knock. Like there's a lot of filler and it's 3 hours. Like when you catch that Hulu version though, that right there is perfect. But
that's correct.
but after that, I'm really gonna skip this next one just because we are running a little long, and I know for an absolute shadow of a doubt we have the same answer. Promotion of the year, WWE. That'll stay the same.
Oh, of course.
Best on promos. Very interested to see what you say here, Ryan. Who do you have for best on promos?
I got Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I mean, come on, Micah. He showed everybody that the fastball is still there. I mean, a lot of people were doubting him. A lot of people were hating on The Rock because of, what happened with the DC Universe stuff, with what Black Adam and all the stories that come out about The Rock. But he showed you why he is still the most electrifying man in sports entertainment. And when he put on those little $500 shirts again and came out with the old Jim Johnston Hollywood Rock theme, you knew you were about to be in for a ride. And he told us right there on, I think it was the Pat McAfee show, to just sit down, shut up, and enjoy the ride The Rock can take you on. And he proved that when he was cutting some of the best promos of the last 20 years that he's had. I mean, the promo he had, the first one, I think, what was that, in Denver or something? I think it was in Phoenix or something, where he said one line in particular. He was closing the promo up and he was saying how Phoenix is the #1 city in America for crack and cocaine use. And then he ended the promo, Micah, by saying, "And now go home and smoke some more crack." And he just hits you with The Rock, if you smell what The Rock's cook. It just proved to you why Rock is still a top promo in the business and legitimately a top 3 promo of all time. And that is why best on interviews, best on promos, most charismatic, most electrifying man in sports and entertainment, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
I don't really have an argument against you because I do agree because I completely forgot about that line. Go home and smoke some more crack. If you smell, like I completely forgot about that.
Or you remember the Rock concert in Memphis? I mean,
I do. I forgot about that as well.
He was cooking, bro.
But I have one that I think will kind of shock you, considering you never let me live down that car ride back from Royal Rumble. Best on promos, I got Drew McIntyre.
Okay.
I thought months ago that McIntyre was kind of in this middling state of lower but upper card guy. He's kind of hit his peak. I don't really see him doing much.
You're buried, Let's call spade a spade.
I kind of was. I mean, I liked him. But he just needed something to change his character.
I think you were more of a Ludwig Kaiser fan than you were a Drew McIntyre fan.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I'm just saying, bro. Just saying. You were burying him. He was your new Kevin Owens. You were giving him a verbal jousting on that car ride back.
I wouldn't call him Kevin Owens, but
you were making fun of him.
But then he turned heel and he's turned over a new leaf and he honestly is just telling the truth, but it's so captivating that you have to know what he says. And maybe not everything he says is the truth, but a lot of it was the truth. And so, it
sounds natural when he's telling you what he thinks because you really believe that he actually prayed for Punk to get injured and him to take Punk's spot. You believe that when he tells you that.
Yeah. And I think it also goes hand in hand that, I had the Bloodline versus Cody as my best feud and Rock was your guy and you had Punk and Drew was my guy. Like to be in the best feud, you have to be a great promo. And suddenly Drew McIntyre is a top 5 promo in the business. And He's done it with Punk. He's done it against Damian. He's done it with Seth. Like, all of these guys, he's went out there and had great segments. One of my favorite segments of the year was Punk, Seth, and Drew right before WrestleMania.
Yeah. I was just about to bring that up. Yeah.
Yep. And I don't think any of that happens. I don't think Drew is where he is today if it's not for Punk. And I think, weirdly enough, they bring out a next level in each other. And like you said, that was something I never would have thought, like, oh, this is what I want to see. But Drew has really turned it up. And I really feel like this one will stay by the end of the year.
And he has earned every single penny of that new multi-million-dollar contract they give him.
Oh, yeah. And that sword that The Rock
and
gave.
Well, The Rock gave him a sword.
Yeah, you don't remember that?
I thought Vince gave him a sword. Did he take it back and then Rock gave him another one?
Well, they didn't give it to him on TV, but they went out to some dinner or whatever,
Okay.
and The Rock came out with some Claymore.
You know, Drew should send a thank you card to CM Punk because the whole Drew McIntyre persona over the last year can be traced back to CM Punk. So,
oh yeah, 100%. Like, truthfully, I really hope they're good friends behind the scenes because they have reinvigorated people into both of them off of one feud.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
After that, we're in the final three here. We got Tag Team of the Year. And this one, I had to look it up. Like, I just had to pick somebody, and I don't really think they're that great.
You go first.
I said the Judgment Day.
Ooh. Okay.
And I'm not necessarily like the biggest fans of them, but they have been tag team champions. They're constantly all over the show. You know, they are a focal point of Monday Night Raw. I just don't really know who else is an option, but maybe you've got somebody.
Oh, it's just so sad to see the state of the AEW tag division when that was one of the things they were bragging about in the beginning was they care about tag team wrestling and they're going to treat tag team wrestling as a main event attraction. And then you look the state of it now, right now. I mean, you got the tag champions barely defending the titles, and the tag division is legitimately worse than WWE's tag division. And I don't know how that's possible because WWE doesn't have tag teams. But they are. It's worse. So for the first time ever, Micah, in the 2 years we've been doing the Scoopies, the Middies, the whatever you want to call this show, I have a no contest for Tag Team of the Year. I will not be crowning anybody as my Tag Team of the Year because the state of tag team wrestling in 2024 is abysmal. They never should have split those tag titles up in WWE. They did. It has suffered, and AEW's tag division is almost non-existent. Hopefully, when they get the Lucha Brothers in there to WWE, which I'm sure they will be going, and you get the Motor City Machine Guns, which I'm sure they're going to WWE too. When you get those teams in, maybe you can do something with the division for a couple months. But as far as the middies, we have a no contest for Tag Team of the Year.
I mean, FTR has been my lock for the past 2 years, but like, who cares about FTR right now? And I like the guys. I'm just saying, like, from a television perspective.
I don't like them. Every time Dax opens his mouth, I hate him even more. And now they're teaming with Orange Cassidy on the show. I don't want to see him in 20. Man, you know what? They should have locked FTR hair up for that gun thing. We could have gotten rid of FTR for good.
Oh, come on.
I'm just saying.
I don't even know, like, the tag division in AEW is so bad. I don't know that I would say it's as bad as WWE's. I would probably just put them on the same level. Like, there's nothing interesting.
How is that? I don't understand.
I don't know because it happened like overnight. They were they had an amazing tag division, and then it was just like poof and gone. And now you don't even have the Lucha Brothers. You have the Bucks. You have FTR.
Yeah, the flight attendant.
Yeah. And then who else? Like, I remember years ago, you had Starks and Hobbs, you had Red Dragon. Like,
Yeah. FTR and Top Flight, The Acclaim, Swerve in Our Glory, which was a stupid name. Yeah, you had some good teams, but yeah.
so yeah, I don't blame you for that one. I'd put the Judgment Day just because they statistically have been the best, I guess. And I'm not putting the Young Bucks because they drive away viewers and they make me not want to watch show at all. So
Yeah.
Now time for the interesting one. Women's Wrestler of the Year. Ryan, who do you have?
Oh, I mean, I guess if you got to give it to somebody, maybe you give it to Rhea. But she doesn't really have any matches that I've been excited about. I don't know, man. Rhea, I guess. Rhea Ripley.
I can't
I'll
fault
hold,
you for that one.
I'll hold my nose and vote Rhea Ripley. But yeah, she hasn't had any great matches.
I need you to just hear me out.
Bro, come on, man. What are we doing? You better not say no Athena.
No. I just need you to hear me out.
But we gonna live?
Because I think she has the accolades.
All right.
I think that she has done a great job of reinventing herself. I think that her matches, while they have not been just absolute barn burners, have been solid all year.
Oh.
And for that reason is why my MIDI Women's Wrestler of the Year is Nia Jax.
That's not ridiculous. That's not ridiculous of you to say that. I don't, because she won. She won one of my awards. I think we cut that one out, but most improved, I thought Nia Jax deserved a nod.
Dude, I'm saying, like, people hate her online.
Yeah, I did too. But she returned and she's been doing some good stuff. I groaned when she showed up the first time, but week by week, man, she's won me over. I was rooting for her to take the title off Bailey.
Yeah.
I don't hate that pig. You know what? I'm changing my pick. I'm going with Nia. Let's go.
Okay. See, and that's my point. Now, for the people out there who think, oh, well, this is probably the dumbest thing we've said all night. Listen, she's Queen of the Ring. She is currently the WWE Women's Champion. I thought, had a pretty good match with Lyra Valkyria, had one of the nastiest spots of the year, which she didn't have to take it, but she had to give it to Lyra. She main evented Elimination Chamber and had a pretty good match with Rhea Ripley. I thought her match with Bailey was passable. It wasn't bad. And she's kind of involved with a decent storyline with Tiffany Stratton. I just don't think there's anybody else that you can really compare her to because Rhea hadn't been here, nor has she been champion. Toni Storm. Yeah. So who else does that even leave? Liv, to me, hasn't been champion, and she hadn't been champion long enough. She didn't really have any good matches with Becky. She had a match with Zelina.
She's had a good storyline, but that's as far as I can take it right there.
Yeah.
And you know what, Micah? The Bloodlines, their reign of dominance on the middies is continuing because Nia Jax is gonna win our. Yeah, there you go. There you have it.
So I thought you were gonna give me some grief for that pick, but I like when I was sitting there thinking about it, I was like, dude, there is nobody else statistically, because like women's and men's wrestler of the year, yes, it is about like having good matches and being the top guy. Like we have one for the draw, which was the MVP, but this is like good matches and accolades, and I don't think that you can put anybody above Nia right now.
No, bro, I had her as my most improved, so I co-sign what you just said there. I agree.
And she got a big pick at Royal, or a big like not pop, but like people really were cheering against her during the Royal Rumble.
bro, the spot she had with Jade was something that it was one of the biggest reactions of the night. And I know it was one of the biggest reactions of the night because I had my Apple Watch with me and it told me that I was experiencing very loud noises and to seek shelter or something like that.
Yeah,
And
I
that
do
was
remember
one
that.
that was one of the only times that happened that night was when Nia got thrown over the top rope by Jade. So yeah, I agree, Micah. That's a good pick. You hit me with some. I didn't think about that as I didn't think about her as women's wrestler of the year, but you sold me.
Yeah, I mean, hey, there's irrefutable evidence, but we'll see what the end of the rest of the year holds. However, we've come to the final one. We've been here for 2 hours. We're gonna wrap it up. Men's wrestler of the year. I'll
Mm.
start us off since you
We
started
talked
last time.
we talked about it weeks ago. We've already discussed this, and it's got to be one particular guy. And I assume you went with this guy, but I don't know.
I think we're on the same wavelength.
Okay.
I've got the current world heavyweight champion Gunther.
Mm. There you go. There it is.
Again, same reason for Nia. The accolades speak for themselves. He's got one loss. It was to Sammy. And to me, the loss to Sammy, like, I'm not saying that it's not credible, but you know how like the 73-9 Warriors would lose to like the Memphis Grizzlies that lost they lost to the Lakers that year. The Lakers had won like 30 games. And I'm not saying that's Sammy, but I'm saying like sometimes just the underdog just beats the star. And
it was time. It was a good number to end on.
yeah. And so I think with that, it was the best thing for Gunther. He goes on, he wins King of the Ring. Now he's the World Heavyweight Champion. He will probably, at bare minimum, hold it until WrestleMania. I can't necessarily say that he's had great stories, but I think that's going to be cooking with the World Heavyweight Championship now in his grasp. And every match he has is great. So, and I'm really interested to see him and Randy in a championship type setting instead of a just a tournament final.
If what I'm reading is true, poor Walter. You know, man, I think the most underrated part of Gunther's whole entire presentation package, no Diddy, is his promo ability. I think his promos are low key one of the best promos in the company because when he talks, it sounds natural. It doesn't sound like he's reading from a script. It sounds like he actually legitimately hates homeless people. He hates street trash. It just feels like that's what Gunther thinks about, certain guys. Gunther is the total package. He's the best heel in the business, the best wrestler in the business. It seems like every other week you're saying, wow, such and such had his best match, or such and such had his best match with Gunther. And you look at the common denominator when you say those words, it's usually Gunther at the end of that. I mean, It's not a coincidence that some of the best matches of the year have been involving Gunther. And a well-deserved world championship run is happening right now with Gunther. Yeah, man, he's been doing some great stuff. I can't say anything negative about what he does. I mean, is there any holes in his game?
I mean, the only thing I would say, like, if I had to rank everything off of like a A to F scale, I would probably say his weakest thing would be promos, but it would still probably be like A minus, B plus. Like, they're not bad. I can't put him on the same level of like a Drew, but like you said, he sounds believable. And the worst thing that ever happens is like sometimes he may get twisted up on his words, which is funny. I got twisted up on mine. But then again, you got to think English is not his first language. And, he's got a pay-per-view next month in his hometown. He's probably going to get, or not hometown, but, home country or whatever. He's probably going to get an insane reaction there. Yeah. And I'm very excited to see the second reign of Gunther. I mean, he made the Intercontinental Championship feel like a world title.
And it's how he carries himself too, man. I mean, you look at him; he looks like $1 million. You can get him to represent the company with by sending him to go do interviews, and he has the size. He passes the airport test, great in the ring. Like you said, his promos aren't the best, but he's still really, really good. So yeah, man. I mean, this could have went to a guy like MJF, but the way the last year or so, MJF, he's been gone and he's been in a weird baby face program, and now he's heel again. We'll see where that goes. He's kind of doing like a rip off JBL angle. Maybe a Will Ospreay. He could have got a shout out, but I just think Gunther's presentation tops what Ospreay can give out at this point. But yeah, man, wrestler of the year, Scoopies, middies, whatever we're calling these, going to Gunther.
Yeah. So the good thing about the middies is they're not locked in. So we'll see what the rest of the year carries. And we're going to be strapped in for the rest of the year. Hopefully, going to try not take any more hiatuses. And we'll see what happens. Next week, we'll be back with reviews as we're just kind of getting back in the swing of things. We appreciate everybody for listening and just being patient with us. A lot going on in both of our lives. So, you know, sometimes podcasting is not at the forefront of things. But we do appreciate everybody that supports us. Speaking of support, make sure you go check out our sponsor, Dead Threads, for all of your sports merch needs. Link in bio. That'll take you 15% off of your cart. Add code SCOOPSLAM for an additional 10% off of whatever you've got in your cart. And aside from that, make sure to go follow our socials. Linktree in the description of this episode. Thank you guys for listening. We hope you enjoyed the middies, the Scoopies, whatever. Come back next week for the reviews. Thank you. Have a good one.